He's a narcissist and you are being love bombed and tricked and deceived. There's just no way. I just knew it was off. What's good, YouTube? It's your girl Gracesandra. I am a multiple trauma survivor just out here trying to survive and thrive. This channel is for other survivors of complex trauma who are just trying to heal, survive, and thrive as well. If that's you, let's let the healing begin. Today's question is, how do I know if I'm with a narcissist? I want to just clarify that I'm not a therapist. I am a survivor of someone with narcissistic personality disorder, and it was one of the most crazy, damaging, horrifying things I've ever been through. So today I'm just talking from my perspective as a survivor. This is not therapeutic advice. Please go see a therapist if you need to. I'm going to give you 7 quick ways that I figured out that I was with a narcissist, with a little bit of an example of each so you can know if this is something maybe you're experiencing. As an aside, I also want to let you know that some of the things I'm going to be talking about, for example, number 1 is it feels off. That was something that happened very early on, but I had no idea that I was with someone who had narcissistic personality disorder until many years later. So I'm coming from a hindsight perspective, and when you're in the middle of it, it's very difficult to figure out what is going on. So let's jump right into it. First way that you might be dating a narcissist is if it feels off. I know that sounds so simple, almost too simple, but when something feels very off, and I'm not talking about, oh, they had a bad day. I just mean you feel off. There were things that were happening very early on. Now looking back, it's very easy to see like, oh my gosh, wow, that was this. I didn't know it then. So for example, when we met, I was in the middle of divorcing in a very long-term marriage, an almost 15-year marriage, and he was trying to pressure me to get married quicker. My divorce had finalized on March 6th from my previous marriage, and he wanted to marry me on April 24th. We were going to go to a friend of the court system. The night before, I was like, I just can't do this. Like, I just can't. It's too soon. Like, I just got divorced on March 6th. Tomorrow is April 24th. I just can't. And the way he responded, in hindsight, it was not one of like,
I completely understand, baby. Like, why do we need to run off and get married at the court system?
It wasn't anything like that. It was very much,
all right, fine. So you gonna put me off?
It was very like off. It was off in a major way. And then another thing that happened within a few months of us being together in June or July of that same year is that I found out about other fiancés just reading his blog, and he accused me of trying to get one up on him, trying to manipulate him in some way. He just didn't act right about it. It was like, hey, I just found out you had like 2 other fiancés that you never told me about. You would expect that someone who is a good person, a loving person, a kind person would be like,
oh my gosh, let me just sit down and tell you all about that. I don't want you to worry about it.
He got mad. He accused me of doing things that were not like on the up and up, as if I was trying to catch him, when really I was just reading his blog to get to know him better because we were about to get married in a few months. So the fact that we met, got engaged, and tried for a baby twice within an 8-month time period, now I can look back and say that's very off. I felt a lot of pressure. I felt like I had to do things to make him happy. I felt like I had to do things to keep him. There is no denying at that time in my life how much my body was like, this is off, this is off. But part of the danger of narcissistic abuse is that someone is lying to you and they're telling you,
everything's fine, we're in love, let's get married, I love you, I chose you, I'm going to take care of you.
And so you want to believe that person, but your body is like, this is off. But there's no way my body could have made that leap. My body or mind could have made that leap to, he's a narcissist and you are being love bombed and tricked and deceived. There's just no way. I just knew it was off. Number 2 is part of what I said in number 1. If you find yourself doing a lot of mental gymnastics for someone while you're just dating them, just in the beginning, that is an early sign that something is very wrong. It's not necessarily a sign of them being a narcissist, but a lot of times mental gymnastics, and I mean real mental gymnastics, is a sign of it, because what narcissistic abuse is, if nothing else, is meant to confuse you and keep you completely off kilter. So I'll give you an example, because you have to do mental gymnastics to survive the constant gaslighting they give you. So for example, we were in the car and I said, and this actually happened, and I was like, it's kind of hot in here. Can you turn it down? He'd be like,
oh, we always have to worry about how hot you are.
And just this big giant explosion about me asking him to turn the heat down. Then he turns it all the way down until it gets really cold in the car, because we were driving in the winter. And then I'm like, I'm actually really cold. But I didn't say that for like an hour because I was so afraid of what he was going to say. So then I finally say, I'm really cold. Like, can you turn the heat up just a little bit? And then he has a big obnoxious response about me asking to turn it up after I just asked to turn it down. Now I want you to hear what I'm saying. We're literally talking about the heat and the temperature in a car. In any sort of healthy, normal relationship, that is not a thing. People just figure it out. out. Oh, you're too hot? You're too cold? Okay, let me turn this on. Let me turn this up. There's no need to have drama. There's no need to be afraid. And so I said to him, you know, I waited an hour to say something about the fact that I was feeling cold because I was so afraid of how you might respond. Again, this is just while we're dating, not engaged yet, not married. And I was like, I just was afraid of you belittling me. And he's like,
Belittling you? You were afraid of me belittling you? What the
and he just went into this whole big rant. And I remember thinking, I'm not really safe to say things that might make him mad. The fact that I thought that as a conscious thought is really sad in hindsight. But I was doing a lot of mental gymnastics because then afterwards he was like,
You know, I'm sorry. I get a little frustrated about this and that. And it's, you know, it's not a big deal. You can always ask me to turn the heat down.
and so then your brain is wanting to say like, see, you just overthought that. That's really not his problem. That's just you overthinking. He's telling you you're overthinking, so you're obviously overthinking. So you end up doing mental gymnastics. The third one is right along in line with this, and that's when you start lying to other people to cover for them. So if you're dating someone and you can't tell other people the things that they say to you, the way that they touched you or harmed you, or something that happened during sex or whatever that didn't make you feel very safe, if you're doing that, chances are you are with someone who maybe not be a narcissist, but is very toxic. You should not have to lie to cover up for someone you're dating. And I know that sounds so simple, but that's what I was doing, where I wasn't even telling my friends the full story because I could see it in their eyes, like the look of like, what are you doing with this dude? And so I didn't want to hear that, because not only was I trauma bonded, felt like I was deeply in love with the person he presented to be, but then he was letting me know
The ways that you're perceiving it are actually wrong. And I do love you very much and I'm still going to be good to you and blah, blah, blah.
And so I would lie to my friends about the kind of person he really was and the things he was really saying, because I was so embarrassed and ashamed to realize that I was with someone like that. But I felt like maybe it's still me at the end of the day. Maybe it's not him, maybe it's still me. So just in case, let me just lie. That's a huge red flag. If you're willing in yourself to violate yourself and your friends and people you love for someone who you're just dating, it's a bad sign, honey. This is another one that is early on in a relationship with a narcissist that you might notice in hindsight. But when I look back, I can see that I was in very deep, inexplicable pain, and I didn't know how to even put words or language. There was nothing I could wrap around it to get my head around the fact that he was causing me a lot of pain, and I didn't know how to articulate it. If you're with someone who is a liar, pathological liar, or maybe they're just toxic, or they're in a bad place in life, there's still a lot of areas of your relationship where you can look to and it feels normal. You don't have to do, for example, the mental gymnastics. But if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, what happens is there's so many different ways that they're treating you poorly and devaluing you and abusing you. But then on top of all of that, they can figure out a way to blame you and make you feel like it's your fault. So the cognitive dissonance, the confusion is really high. The blinders are really high. It's really foggy around you. And so the mental confusion, the mental fog is really big. And that's one way I can tell when I'm talking to a friend or someone who comes to me, or before when I used to do coaching, I could tell right away there probably was someone who was really high narcissistic traits, if not narcissistic personality disorder, because they're just so confused about how deep of a pain they're in. It's often hard to explain. It's the more that they're jumbled and they can't explain it, it's kind of like the more that I feel like, yeah, they're probably with someone who's a narcissist. Because when I've been with people in the past who've hurt me but aren't narcissistic, I can point to certain actions. He stood me up for a date, that hurt my feelings. Or he can be kind of rude, but when you point it out to him, then he acknowledges this man did this, or whatever the case may be. Usually when it's someone who's not very toxic, they're just a normal person who hurts people's feelings, or they're insensitive or whatever, you can point it out. But with narcissists, as a victim, it's really hard to even point out what they're doing. You can't even put words to it. It's something that I've seen in a lot of different people and in myself, where I would be trying to tell people, especially after we got married, especially once the devaluation process started, I couldn't articulate without going into long, in-depth stories about why and how he was hurting me. Confusion is the next one. Confusion is a lot like the last one, but if you find yourself feeling confused all the time, chances are you are dating someone with very either high narcissistic personality traits, or if not, narcissistic personality disorder, because confusion is their special superpower. Besides gaslighting and lying to you about who you are, making you feel confused about every single little thing is something they love to do. And it is a huge indicator something's really wrong in your relationship. Even if they're not high in narcissistic personality traits, even if they don't have NPD, you're probably dealing with someone really toxic if they keep you confused and they seem committed to keeping you confused all the effing time. The next way that I personally experienced that I found that I knew I was dating a narcissist, again in hindsight, is that I felt like I was always trying to solve a puzzle. If you feel like you're trying to solve a puzzle where you feel like, okay, I have to remember this, think about this, have proof of this before I have this conversation with him, and I remember when this happened and I have to, think about, well, this happened, so he said this and this happened, and your brain is in this non-stop trying to figure out what's going on, again as a result of confusion, again as a result of mental gymnastics, again as a result of someone pathologically lying to you or telling you who you are or how you are, what you feel. And so you're dealing with this brain that knows it's being lied to. It's literally like someone punching you in the arm while they're saying,
I'm not punching you, you're punching me and this is your fault.
and you're like getting punched in the arm and having someone tell you they're not punching you, and you're like, and you're feeling it, and you're like, it's so confusing. And so your brain is like, I have to make sense of this. And so you feel like, I got to write this down, I got to tell somebody. I really can't adequately explain how much I felt like I was constantly trying to solve a puzzle. And especially if someone asked me, for example, this conversation never happened, but very specifically, are you in deep pain? Are you in a lot of pain? Are you hurting? And me being like, yes, let me explain it to you. And then I would try and be like, I don't know how. I don't even know what to say. I'd have to tell you like an hour-long story to tell you why that hurts so much. That's another sign, I believe, personally, that you're with a narcissist, is if it takes an hour to describe one single instance of pain or something like that in an abusive event and why that abusive event hurts so bad. And in part, it's because of the way that someone with very high narcissistic personality traits who has very little empathy tries to manipulate a situation to make you believe it's your fault. And they're also doing something that's so evil by distorting your reality, which is often called gaslighting. And that behavior in and of itself leads to such profound cognitive dissonance that the person is just reeling and unable to explain themselves, and it's really hard. And finally, there's so many others, but these are the major ones that stuck out to me of how I knew I was dating a narcissist in hindsight. The last one is catching them in lies that they later then deny. I've dated men who are seemingly good guys, and like one of them I caught him in a lie, and this is like on the 7th or 8th date, and he was like,
you know what, you caught me, I'm sorry, and here's exactly what happened and here's why I lied to you about that.
He took accountability, he apologized, and he was like,
that was dumb.
When I was with my narcissistically abusive ex and I would catch him in any sort of lie, it was an attack back at me. It was my fault. It was yelling. It was swearing, potentially even a verbally abusive episode, especially after we got married and just all hell broke loose where he just started going absolutely bad crazy on me. It was insane the amount of mental hoops that he jumped through to deny lies that I could prove. I'm not talking about stuff I couldn't prove. It was literally like, I have 5 pages of text between you and this woman here, and then him being like,
I don't know where that came from.
And I'm like, well, it came from the phone company because I literally went onto the phone company website and downloaded, and I can see that you're texting her all day and all night.
Oh, well, now you got files on me? Now you keeping files on me?
That whole conversation was so frustrating because it was like, I have the proof. I literally have the proof, though. I have the proof. Why can't you just say you lying? I have the proof. That is such a frustrating reality, and that's something that people with NPD tend to do. When you're dating someone who has these toxic, disturbing, troubling things happening, where your body and your mind is feeling, what the F is going on? Sis or bro, please trust yourself. If you think you might be dating a narcissist, someone with narcissistic personality disorder, if you have studied and done your research and watched YouTube videos and read the books and read the articles and you've been on Quora and you've been doing all this research, chances are you probably are, because when people who are victims of these kind of people get to the research phase, you're really finding stuff out and you're like, oh my god, it's this, oh my god, it's this, oh my god, it's this. And like, it, for me, when that phase started, it was overwhelming. It was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is what I've been dealing with. I'm gonna list below a couple books and resources that have helped me when I first realized that I was being narcissistically abused. One of them is by Shahida Aribi and the other one is Melanie Tanya Evans. Both of those authors really helped me. I hope this helps. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments below. I try to answer everything. I am an author. I wrote a book called Grace Actually, Stories of Love, Faith, Loss, and Black Womanhood. This is a series of blog posts that I compiled over the last several years of when I was a mommy blogger, starting back in the year 2005. The book doesn't talk about narcissistic abuse per se, but my life before that and some other trauma I went through. Anyway, if you're new here, thanks so much for watching. Please like, follow, gently caress the like button because you know it helps me grow. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next episode.